Good day, everybody. This is the Ecclesiarch here, back with some more Horus Heresy Legions and Warpforge, and today we're going to be discussing the patch of both of the games that actually either already came out in case of the Warpforge or is soon dropping in case of Horus Heresy Legions, at the moment of making of this video at least. So there have been some big changes to both, and I want to go through them and I want to actually say what I think about all of these changes and what that could mean. So let's actually start from the Horus Heresy Legions. And the first faction that got hit are the Night Lords. So number one, the Ormar veterans have changed the description to terror adjacent troops have +1. So it no longer affects the Warlord. I'm going to go through it and then I'm going to say what I think. The Haunted Dreams has had a change in rally. The change is that now instead of this turn, until your next turn, it applies the attack debuff only this turn. With Praetor Kevark, the attack has been lowered by 1, and Lords of Murder cost has been increased by 1, and Price of Defiance has a description change. Now it gives -1 to adjacent units until your next turn instead of -2. So the first thing that we might notice here is that they're really trying to tone down the until your next turn part. I can actually kind of get that part of the nerf very well, because it's very oppressive when the opponent is playing a type of a gym boss warlord, let's say, like that, like something like Angron or anything similar. So it really locks them down. And even though this could be like a nice answer to something obnoxious as Jagatai, I think it's just too oppressive against certain warlords. So I can totally understand that change. Praetor Kevark, I can also get why they changed that, because that unit is very, very strong. It's a stealth unit, is also very oppressive, and Lords of Murder has been their go-to tactic to just push the aggro further and further. Now, what I actually do get a little bit annoyed about is the Ormar veteran change that I actually disagree with. I don't know what you guys think, you can comment, but I think that this is not a good change, because technically speaking, what you're doing with this is that you're killing the whole purpose of the card, right? So now it's just a 3 energy unit that you can only play for full, let's say, value if you have 2 units on the board, which is very unlikely. So before this, if it was like when you would drop it, your Warlord would also get attack, so you could also use it as a 3-drop. Well, now that's gone. I think that is a very, very bad change, because they essentially killed the card. And I don't even think that that was a card that was necessary to kill in the first place, because that was kind of one of their go-to things for aggro. And considering how much else was basically nerfed, I think this was too much, because you already reduced the attack on Kevark, you already increased the cost on Murder, you also called one of their annoying mechanics, which I do agree with once again. But I do disagree with this hard. I think there are some other problematic Night Lord cards that they could look at instead of this. I don't know. Or maybe I could be wrong there. I'm not like the biggest Night Lord player, but I do believe that changes like this are just not good for the game, because I don't like it when they kill cards. I mean, I could still play Kevark, I could still play Lords of Murder, Haunted Dreams, Price of Defiance, but this card is now dead. And I never really like it when they kill cards, because it's just it just removes the whole purpose of it, and it's no fun in my opinion. Anyway, let's now move on to the White Scars, and I can actually understand why a lot of Night Lords players are very dissatisfied. They were strong, they were annoying, they needed to be dealt with, but I don't think the Ormar veteran nerf was the way. With White Scars, we have 4 changes. Gold Star Rhino has been changed, so it heals 2 to your Warlord instead of 3, alright. And Solomon Khan has changed, and it gives you the infantry for 1 cost less instead of 3. White Tiger Dao has increased the cost from 5 to 6, and Targetized Sacrifice has been increased by cost from 5 to 6. Now, I can totally understand where this is coming from. These are all 4 cards that Jagatai Khan used to use, and Jagatai Khan is a big problem overall, because it's an obnoxious design in the first place, because if he gets his combo, then you're done, because he can just you cannot just win at all with your control decks that are not gym bosses, right? If you play units to on the board, this guy can basically punish you indefinitely. And he has received a number of nerfs, like even before the quick reflexes also got increased in cost. So I guess what they're trying to do here is they're trying to increase the time in which Jagatai becomes effective, so that the other let's say if you're playing a troop deck or if you're playing an aggro deck, you have more time to finish him off or to bring him down to like critical HP before he's able to equip all of his stuff. Now with the Tolmon Khan, I can also kind of get the idea, because that thing can give you a Raptor Guard, which is obnoxious, is one of the best units in the game, plus it comes with a heal. And Golden Star Rhino, I don't know if I agree with the Golden Star Rhino change. You know, the problem here with this is that, yeah, they're trying to aim a nerf at Jagatai, but the problem also is that some of these things might also affect some other White Scars warlords, right? So, for example, Tolmon Khan and Golden Star Rhino could be used by other White Scars warlords as well. And the problem in general is that a lot of times what they do is they target a warlord with the nerf, which is good. For example, like with White Tiger Dao and Targetai Sacrifice is directly a nerf to Jagatai, right? But what about the other White Scars warlords, right? If they're gonna keep like nerfing and nerfing and nerfing White Scars, then the faction is not playable. Well, faction has not been playable while. To be honest, White Scars has always been a problem, because there's always like one warlord that's abusive with them, and the others are like non-existent. So I think that is not the correct way to just go about it. They also need to apply a couple of buffs and changes so that the other White Scars warlords are playable as well. I guess this is acceptable for a start, because White, as I said, Jagatai was like very obnoxious, so I definitely agree with them doing this. I'm just not sure about like if Golden Star Rhino was necessary. Tolmon Khan, once again, I can understand, because a little bit obnoxious as well. Well, with the Alpha Legion, we also got some nerfs, like Escalator Squad nerf, Ancient Inigo nerf, which I think is very good, because 2 health was way too much. Saboteur Consul has already received a nerf for 1/1, and Vigilator Seraphos has received a nerf for attack. Well, Alpha Legion, I haven't had a chance to play against a lot of Alpha Legion players, actually, but I have heard that they're still quite obnoxious, so I can get where the nerfs are coming from. I wouldn't be the best person to actually review the Alpha Legion nerfs, because didn't really get a lot of chance to play them or play against them, but you guys tell me in the comments what you think. The only thing that I definitely know is a good change is Ancient Inigo, like 100%. So Archon Land has also had an ability change, and I think that makes a lot of sense, because as I know, Archon Land has had like a very has been like very obnoxious the moment they released him, right? So I think this was something that was necessary. Whenever these guys release a neutral warlord, you know that there's gonna be trouble. There's like never like in between. Either it's like crazy broken or it's like unusable. So they're never like in between. So I think I do understand where this is coming from, and I have no protest whatsoever on that. Now, with the Lord of the Flies for Chaos, there is a very big change. His ability now is deal 2 damage, and if target dies, put in play a Plague Drone. Now, this is a bit of a problem, honestly. I mean, I think we've all been waiting for Lord of the Flies to become playable, but I think this is going to be a little bit obnoxious. Before I understand why it was a problem, it was 2 energy, deal 1 damage, even though I think it healed you. But look at this. Now, for 2 energy, you deal 2 damage, and you also play a 3 energy troop, a Plague Drone that also has poison, by the way. And since Lord of the Flies units ignore maintenance, it's also a pretty well-statted 3 energy unit without its downside of maintenance. So I'm afraid that this might technically go from weird to extremely obnoxious. Like, once again, I'm happy that they are actually buffing him. He needed that, but I think it's about to scrape the surface of obnoxious. Perhaps what they could do is, instead of Plague Drone, maybe drop something else. I think he used to drop the flies or something before, so I don't know. We need to see, but this smells very obnoxious. So transmutative armament has been buffed for abomination, cost from 2 to 1. I totally understand that because I've never seen an infamous abomination ever played. I think I've only faced it like a few times when it came out. Cygnus Adept, change ability to choose a 2 cost cultist. That's a very welcome buff, I think, because he was like very subpar because of the randomness. Sork has been buffed, cost from 1 to 0, which I also like. I was always annoyed that his ability cost 1. Cygnus Demagogue, change description to cultist. When an enemy troop dies, put in play a Cygnus Acolyte instead of adding it to your hand. Oh, that's actually a big deal. That's actually a very big deal because one of the problems with Cygnus Demagogue that I personally had was that it used to fill my hand up too much, so you might have ended up overdrawing, so definitely really good. Athame, lower cost from 2 to 1. Yeah, I guess that's a cool one because Athame has been dead ever since they changed that card, so totally welcome. Hellspawn, lower cost from 3 to 2 and change description to give a +2/+2 to a friendly demon or Mark of Chaos to a non-demon troop instead of +2/+1. Okay, so they're really trying to push the whole Mark of Chaos and Chaos gameplay here. Corrupting Influence, lower the cost. Eightfold Brand, lower the cost. Very interesting. So apparently they're really trying to get that Chaos gameplay in there. But take a look at this. With Imperial Army, Helic Moor received a nerf for the Calidus Assassin. Now, the first tactic costs 1 instead of all. Totally agree with that. It's obnoxious when all of your tactics cost 1 less. I think I might be wrong. But the main change, I think, here is that all of these cards have been moved to a Chaos faction. So that means that Lotara, Balthazar Dupain, and everybody from the Traitor Auxilia are now officially Chaos. And if you guys remember, the Chaos mission card, the Cultist Uprising, requires for your Chaos troops to die, not your cultists. So that means, well, the Chaos mission just got a whole lot better, and I think Lotara is going to be the prime candidate to do that because of the fact that she can give flank. But at the same time, Balthazar Dupain might end up being quite obnoxious because if now Solar Auxilia are also Chaos, well, goddamn. Yeah, this is gonna bring some substantial changes. One of the very important things, once again, is that now you can use the new AoE card, the one that deals damage to all troops except Chaos troops on Lotara and Balthazar and on Solar Auxilia builds. So I think the meta is gonna shift quite a bit towards the most obnoxious Chaos build that the first person comes up with, basically. I'm actually gonna start working on that. I'm gonna start with the cultist mission for sure, but I'm just gonna say right away, there's gonna be, I think, some problems because of that, and this is gonna be a problem. And once again, I do think that they really did go far with the Night Lords. I think that was not that necessary. But in any case, guys, please leave a comment and tell me what you think about this. Now, one little thing that I actually want to mention is that I do understand that this is probably supposed to function as a nerf because he's probably not going to have the refill anymore. And instead, as a compensation, he receives the vehicles cost less and the ability choose a vehicle, and it's the ability also costs less. I think this is going to like make it tolerable now, because overall, like, those energy refills tend to be very scary. Like, if you people remember how it was playing against sometimes playing against Caleb Decima, it was really annoying. Like, now Caleb Decima was never really meta, but it was very annoying when he could just spam units and then still use his warlord power. So now I can actually imagine how obnoxious that might have been on a warlord that was actually maybe pretty good. So overall, I guess we'll wait and see just how this rolls out. Now, on to the Warpforge changes, and Warpforge changes have had some big deals here. First of all, we've received quite a bit of changes for the Tau Empire. Now, there are some very good changes here, but some that are very questionable. So first of all, the Honored Ethereal has had its melee and ranged and health, reduced to 4, which is a correct nerf because the Honored Ethereal was overstated as hell. 4 energy, 5/5 with shield and an ability. No, like passive and like talent ability as well, like 2 overloaded. So this is definitely a very good change. I'm gonna say another change that is welcome: experimental drones, a very obnoxious card. So later that shit comes into the game, the better. And same with valued sacrifice, which has had a cost increase. But I think valued sacrifice received the wrong nerf. I think what they should have done, that instead of increasing the cost, they should have left the cost as it is. But instead, they should have made it only spawn 2 cost drones, or maybe not 3 cost, like 2 cost drones instead, so it can no longer drop turrets and stuff like that. I think that would have been a better change instead of just making the cost go up by 1. Just my opinion. Structural analyzer increased from 2 to 3. I kind of get where this is coming from. At first I thought it was a stupid change, but I really do understand where this is from. This is like to destroy Omezo's curve, I guess, so that he cannot drop the Dark Strider on energy 3 and then on the next turn 2 analyzer plus drop another drone. But what I do not understand is the coordinated engagement, because I just gotta be honest, nobody really asked for this, because this was a card that nobody complained about. Like, coordinated engagement, if it's used in a deck, it's only used to as a hard removal, not a way of just stacking marker light on troops, right? So I don't even understand why they did that. It was totally unnecessary. I think what they need to address instead of that is like the fact that most of the drones are very hard to deal with for a lot of actions, and on top of that, the Tau can rebuild their board from scratch like a gazillion times. So there's like a bigger problem that the Tau are having currently, and like some of the changes that I could suggest is individual drones maybe could receive some changes. For example, the marker light drone could only affect troops. The missile drone could have 2 health instead, not missile, sorry. The gun drone could have like 2 health instead of 3, and like very small changes that could overall like bump it down a little bit. But I also think that companion is currently very busted on some units, because some units are just able to rebuild like a board alone, which is crazy. But I guess they could not do like a ton of nerfs at the same time because the faction has just come out. Some of these nerfs, as I said, are very good. I just don't get the coordinating engagement with one is just out of the blue. With the High Fleet Leviathan, there have been some very substantial changes. With Tervigon, actually increased talents cost 1 and change the description, create a Termagant in your hand is not too bad, and the first troop costs less. This means that you can still use this every turn as long as you are planning to use a troop on that turn instead of a tactic, because if you have 2 energy and have a 2 energy tactic, you can either make a Termagant or use a tactic. You can't do both. But if you have 2 energy and want to use the ability and drop a 2 energy troop, you can do that. So that's actually a thing. I totally can get behind that. However, one thing that I really can't get behind is this change right here. I don't really get why, what was the point of nerfing Tervigon even further, because he used to be unplayable, or she used to be unplayable before the recent buff that she got. So nerfing her even further is, I don't think, unnecessary. I don't think necessary, especially considering Overwhelming Swarm also received a nerf, which was due. It's a good nerf. It was necessary because it was obnoxious playing like a gazillion troops on turn 4. It was like the same problem with the Green Horde, so I'm glad that they kind of addressed that. But at the same time, Termagant, I think the Termagant change was way too much on top of the 2 nerfs that she got. I think this was going overboard, especially because of one thing. Tervigon is actually very good against Gaskul, and Gaskul was one of the meta warlords and is still pretty strong, so you're essentially removing one of the counters to that warlord from the game. Now, Termagant Brood increased health. Nobody cares about this, I think. It's still a pretty bad card. But Broodlord and Ravenous Hunter nerfs are more than welcome, because I think that one of the worst experiences in Warpforge was getting killed by a Tyrannid like from 30 to 0 with only like a Broodlord on the board or something like that, right? So it could have gotten like very, very obnoxious. It can still be obnoxious, don't get me wrong, it's still gonna give you a ton of damage, but at least it's going to be a little bit less in terms of not giving your Warlord like +2 melee attack, so that the Swarmlord can actually get 5, right? So these two are, I think, welcome changes that have been long overdue. With the Goth Orcs, there's actually 2 very nice changes. With the Will of Gork, increased cost from 7 to 8. This should have always happened, so I know should have always been like that. Definitely welcome. I know some orcs are angry about that, but let's be honest, guys, it's only fair. And I can understand why Gaskell has been nerfed further, because he's still the biggest, baddest orc warlord. And by reducing the ranged attack, actually, that is the one that I think hurts the orcs currently more. Because now what you could do before this change was that you could play Crump the Gits into a Squig and give the Squig ranged attack. And it could also suicide into raged units, right? Now it can no longer do that. So that's actually a big nerf right there. So the effectiveness of orcs against Tau has been decreased a little bit, which I don't think is bad per se, but it's not too good either, because there's going to be an overwhelming amount of Tau on the ladder once again. But I'm surprised that the Grizzled Scarboy has not been touched, because Grizzled Scarboy, I think, is one of the bigger problems in this game currently. I think what should have happened is at least they should have reduced the heal on Scarboy by 1. And there's also the mandatory bullshit nobody needs change with Iskandar Kaon getting a shield. And I think that's a stupid change, because like, what's that gonna change, right? What is that gonna change? Iskandar Kaon's problem is not that it's not bulky enough. Iskandar Kaon's problem is that it doesn't do something that's good. I've always been saying change him, give him a rally to do something like choose a psychic power and add it to your hand or something, right? They could always do like choose a Black Legion psychic power, add it to your hand, and it costs, let's say, X less, right? So that could be really good. That could be really good, because maybe you could use the one of the psychic powers to just give him camouflage instantly and so on. I don't know. In any case, I think that's a bad change, and I'm still waiting for the Venom Crawler armor to move to the Terminator, and I'm gonna keep saying that until that happens. Anyway, gentlemen, these are all the changes. I think we're still not gonna be safe from the Orc plus Tau meta, but we will see. Perhaps some things are going to change. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think. Ecclesiarch out.